1. Legit 3 people know this story because I don't talk about it. The events happened 13 years ago, and it still messes with me to this day, even though I'm not in any sort of danger. When I was in college, I got super depressed and stressed out near my junior year. I was always super into school, and just started slipping near the end of my college terms, so it threw me off bad. Never experienced failing at subjects before, and it threw me into ridiculous stress. I graduated and figured everything would go away with that, but I found myself still feeling very mentally foggy. My sister knew how bad off I was from the last few years of school, so she hatched a plan to surprise me. I always wanted to go to Miami growing up. I know how lame that sounds, but being a girl who grew up in the Midwest and even went to college there, it was always super exciting looking to me. Up to this point, I traveled, but never went anywhere as lively or as big as Miami always seemed. My sister planned a 5-night vacation with me as a way to get me out of this mental fog, and also to celebrate in our own way me graduating college. I was super excited. A few months passed, and it was time for the trip. We get there, and the first few nights were incredible. We hit up the restaurants I had on my little list of places to try, and spent many hours by the ocean. I was never a big party girl. Up to this point in my life, I was drunk maybe twice. My sister was the opposite, who was at every party that happened in our hometown. She got bored of going back to the room so early every night, and convinced me to go to a nightclub with her for the first time. I fought it a bit, but let my guard down because I was feeling great for the first time in a long time, and was ready to try new things. It was a Saturday night downtown, in the middle of summer. We get to this nightclub, and the line is legit wrapped around the building. It was massive. We waited in line for what felt like forever, and were let in finally. I walked in the door and felt like I got shot because of the loudness. My sister dragged me to the bar and ordered some shots of some drink with a funny name. Again, I decided to just let my guard down and try new things. As more shots went down, I decided that would be the theme of the night, trying new stuff out. I was aware how boring I was, and was, in my opinion, in the most exciting place in the world. Around 45 minutes into dancing and drinking, I became very drunk. Borderline blackout. I was a very sloppy drunk, and was aware of it. I found myself laying on a couch thing in the upstairs area overlooking the dance floor, as my sister was dancing with some guys. As I lay there, trying to consciously sober myself up, I realized how badly I had to pee. So I brought myself up to a sitting position on the couch to stand up and walk to the nearby bathroom. As I sat up, a massive man quickly sat so close to me, I could feel his leather pants pressed on my leg. He was huge, absolutely over 6 feet tall, and looked like some sort of bodybuilder. Admittedly, he was very good looking. But I was so drunk that I wasn't even trying to flirt and just get up to find the bathroom. He smiled at me and yelled over the music something like, "Leaving so soon?" I remembered nervously laughing and attempted to get up, but he grabbed onto my dress and pulled me back down to a sitting position next to him. His smile went away, and he said in a very deep tone, "I don't remember telling you were allowed to leave, bitch." Even though I was very drunk leading up to this, I felt like I sobered up within seconds. I never had anything like this happen before. But I wasn't just going to allow this guy, no matter how much bigger he is than me, to do that to me. I attempted to stand up again, and he did the exact same thing, but much more aggressive. I thought it was insanely rude, but I wasn't afraid because of how many people were around me. He tapped my heels with his big yellow leather boots and said, "I couldn't help but notice how much I want to fuck your feet." My fight or flight kicked in. I slapped him in the face and stood up to walk away. I was very uncomfortable, but I still wasn't afraid because of the amount of people around. As I was walking away, I heard him laughing, and he yelled to me, "I'm trying to decide if I want to keep your feet after I cut the rest of your sexy body up into little pieces." I still hear it in my mind, play out, clear as day. I walked away, very quickly as I attempted to search for my sister on the dance floor above. I couldn't find her, so I decided to take my phone out to text her just to see I had a missed call from her. I was out of eyeshot from this dude and cut away into the bathroom so I could call her back. It was still pretty loud in there, but it wasn't loud enough to where she couldn't hear me on the phone. I went into the stall and called her back. As I was in the stall, I heard the bathroom door open and someone went into the one directly next to me. I was waiting for her to pick up when I looked down underneath the stall and saw the same guy's very distinct yellow leather boots. He was just standing there. I felt like I was about to die. I know he knew I was in there. I held my breath and hung up the phone, just staring at his shoes, not moving a single bit when he shut the door. I heard the main bathroom door open again, and I immediately ran out of the stall, out the door, and straight outside the club without slowing down once. I was terrified. It just so happens my sister was close to where I came out, trying to call me to ask if I was ready to leave. I told her we needed to get back as soon as possible. We got back to the room safely, and I told her everything that happened. She suggested calling the police, but I was just ready to drop it. We changed our flight, and the next night flew back home. I searched a few years pretty actively online for arrests in the area to see if he would ever come up. He never did. After a few years, I moved on mentally, and got over it for the most part. It's hands down the scariest moment in my life. I don't know who this guy was, and if he was just saying things to scare me, or if he was serious. 2. So in mid-December of this year, there was a robbery at the drugstore that I, 21 and female, worked at. There were 3 young boys who came in and stole narcotics from the pharmacy safe, and I was the keyholder on duty at the time. Not a pharmacist. I was part of the store front team. The pharmacy manager was also there, but I was responsible for closing duties and had a key to the store. I remember it was about 10 minutes before closing, and they had come in wearing large jackets and had a bag on them. At the time, I didn't suspect anything sinister because of my preconceived notions of youth. There were 3 of them, ranging in ages from about 13 to 18. At first, I thought they were just aimlessly walking around as young people do. But I realize now in hindsight, they were just scoping around until the last customer left. It was almost time for closing, so I was at the front looking up and down the aisles to see how many customers were left. It was then that the cashier said, "Why are those people behind the pharmacy counter?" It was at this point I saw they were robbing the pharmacy. The cashier and I panicked, and she said, loud enough for them to hear, "Should I call the police?" I answered her yes, and took out my cell phone to call as well. At this point, one of them looked down the aisle and saw me reaching for my phone and headed towards me. I ran. I didn't control my reaction. I was just thinking, and my first reaction was to run out of the store. He chased me, yelling, "Drop your phone!" And another boy went and said the same to the cashier. He caught up to me, only about a meter out of the store, and when I turned around, he had a small gun in his hand, previously concealed by his jacket sleeve. I dropped my phone on the ground, and he picked it up and escorted me back inside, where they demanded both the cashier and I go on our knees. On their way out, the cashier and I begged for our phones back, and to our surprise, they dropped them on the ground as they ran out. Soon after, we called 911 again, and the police came and took our statements and asked to look at the CCTV footage. I told them I have no idea how it worked and called my manager so that she could tell them the password to it and stuff. Over the phone, she was apprehensive to come to the store and didn't know if she should bother as the pharmacy manager was there anyways. And I just handed over my phone to the police so that they could communicate clearly. The cashier, post office worker, and I congregated to discuss what had happened, and we exchanged our feelings of unease. I distinctly remember my stomach turning and feeling like my pants were suddenly too tight. We tried to lighten the situation by making jokes about it, saying things like, "Haha, this ain't worth minimum wage," and maybe the gun wasn't real, it was so small. I live in Canada, where firearms are illegal to have. Soon after, the manager arrived. I don't know if it was of her own accord, as I left the room after the cops took my phone. She saw us making light-hearted jokes and thought it would be appropriate to join in. She talked about how she would have kicked them out heroically, because she wasn't afraid of no teenagers with a fake gun. and even went as far as to make fun of me for running away. A few hours later, we were informed we could go home, and I handed the manager the store keys and said, "Here, I'm not working tomorrow anyways." She was pissed at the thought that I wasn't coming in the next day, even though I was genuinely not scheduled. She had a full-on argument with me, and even made me go to the staff room and check the posted schedule. It was at this point I knew she would be uncooperative, if any of us wanted a few days off, if any of us were uncomfortable coming back. The next day rolled around, and no one at the store even called us to check up. I had a friend who had worked the following day, and she said that other employees didn't even know there was a robbery when she brought it up. This didn't surprise me because I also found out the same thing had happened at another location just 5 minutes away and no one even warned us. This friend told me that one of the loss prevention higher-ups came in to discuss the theft with the manager, and overheard that he was irritated upon finding out she never called us. She told him, "I did call the cashier to see if she could come cover someone on Wednesday." Just 2 days after the incident, he didn't seem impressed, but obviously would not reprimand her in front of other employees. She really had no empathy for any of us that were there. That evening, around 6 p.m., was the first time she called me. Because my friend had informed me of her attitude beforehand and lack of compassion, I had been totally ignoring her calls, as there are a number of incidents that occurred before unrelated that showed me this side of her, and I decided I was too angry to speak to her and not lose my control. She clearly thinks we're disposable, and I have no doubt in my mind that the only reason she's reaching out is because her higher-ups are making her do so. Even in the voicemail she leaves me, they are nothing of understanding, and instead just asking when I'm coming to work again. A couple of weeks prior, my work friends and I were exchanging our experiences, where we witnessed the manager being racist towards customers and fellow employees, as well as acting discriminatory towards disabled customers. There are countless behaviors that the manager has that make the work environment so hostile to work in, including yelling at employees in front of customers. She has also verbally stated a number of times that she never hires men and no men work at the store except for the assistant manager, who was not hired by her. This on top of the fact that everyone employed there under her is hired through nepotism, including those of us talking, and so it's rare for anyone to report it. As we were already frustrated with her, I wrote a detailed letter to HR as well as her direct supervisor about specific accounts of discrimination and unfair treatment in scheduling. I also included that she makes keyholders take deposits to the bank, which is not allowed, as well as how she leaves at least an hour early if there is another keyholder. I also went into detail about how with the scheduling I went almost a year without a single weekend off, and how she enforced that we only get one 15-minute break and one 30-minute break for 8-hour shifts, which we recently found out is not the store policy. I put off sending the letter until after the robbery, which for me was the final straw. I included details about the robbery and how we were treated after, and to this day I haven't received any response from anyone. Needless to say, I haven't gone back since, but also haven't officially quit. Please tell me not everyone has a boss that is this nasty. I'm truly just posting this here because I want to be heard. And by the way she's downplayed it, I seriously doubt she's changing anytime soon. Just recently, my friend from work showed me a news article, and it showed that people were arrested for a list of armed robberies in my area, and I'm certain it's the same people. If it is them, it is reasonable to believe the gun was actually real, and just furthers my anger towards my workplace. If anyone has any advice on whether I should get paid time off or anything, please let me know because they are wildly intransparent about this kind of thing. 3. This happened just a few days ago as of writing. It all started a few weeks ago on a Sunday morning. I still live with my parents while I'm going to college, and we were running low on some stuff, so I offered to go to Walmart. When I do get there, everything is going smoothly, and nothing out of the ordinary has happened. Then, while I'm on the cleaning supplies aisle, hunting up some bleach, I feel something slide across my butt. I look back with my well-known bitch stare to see an overly obese man dressed up in greasy-looking sweats. and a white t-shirt covered in stains that barely covered his hairy belly. He was wearing sandals exposing his fungus-infected feet, and was wiggling his toes while smirking at me. It was physically impossible for him to rub my butt with his hand because I was crouched down. Take a good guess at what body part he used. I'm awkwardly staring. Hello? Do I know you?
Do you know me? We went to high school together.
At this point, I seriously doubted that. He looked almost in his late 30s with his lack of hair on top and the nasty, greasy neckbeard he sported. Not really. It was nice meeting you, though, sir. I'm on a time limit, and I gotta go. And I left without a backwards glance. For the rest of my trip there, he was always following me with that creepy smirk of his. I don't know what his problem was, and I still don't. I had never encountered someone like this before in my life. It was a very creepy and nerve-wracking experience for me, but it wasn't the end. After that day, I had one more run-in with him that was basically him asking me if I was single and complimenting me on my nice bottom and chest. Although he was more vulgar about it. Then it was like I was seeing him everywhere. I was always second-guessing myself and wondering if who I saw was really him. My parents were getting worried, and after hearing my mom plead for me to tell her what was wrong, I explained everything. Both of them were pissed, to say the least, and my dad, bless him, drove up to our Walmart searching for him. Of course, he never did find him until a few days ago. Or it was more like the beard found me. That's when the shit hit the fan. I was already stressed by school, looking for a part-time job, and this weird neckbeard that I was paranoid about. While helping my mom with cleaning, we all heard a loud honk from outside. My dad went out to investigate while Mom and I continued to clean. Eventually, though, my curiosity got the better of me, and I glanced out of our curtains to see that piece of garbage had followed me home. He was standing there in different clothing and chatting with my dad, who had no clue who this guy was. His eyes caught mine, and he smirked that disgusting smirk at me. I lost it. I stormed through the door, screaming profanities at him and ready to beat his ass. I didn't care that he was taller and bigger than me, I just wanted him gone. Somewhere, over my haze of fury, I could hear my mom screaming for me while my dad was cursing up a storm. I must have yelled out that it was him, the guy who had been stalking me, and now he knew where I lived. The next thing I know, I'm wrapped up in my mom's arms while my dad just loses his shit. My anger died down quickly after seeing this. He'd always joked that I'd never seen him truly angry. And he was right. Mom and I finally got him off when the creep was on the ground and bloodied. We called the cops, and they came and got him. A little while later, when the police got back to us, we were told to drive down to the police station, and we did. Just my dad and I. When we got there was a detective waiting along with a few officers. I remember just feeling lightheaded when seeing them and realizing this was a lot worse. The detective brought us to a room and talked me through what happened, and afterwards, he pulled out a handful of photos. I stared at them in silence. And then I lost the contents of my breakfast all over the floor. There were photos of me walking my dogs, out having lunch with my friend, of me just out in town in general. There was even a photo of me from when my mom and I went a few cities over. It was frightening. But there wasn't just pictures of me, no. There were pictures of other women with equally dark brown hair and blue eyes like mine. After calming down with the help of the detective and my fuming father, he began to tell me about the bastard and what he was planning to do. To be blunt, he was a druggie who had a dream about a beautiful woman who worshipped the ground he walked on. But he couldn't remember what her face looked like. He did remember that she had dark brown hair and blue eyes. Me trying not to laugh hysterically and on the brink of a panic attack. You're joking, right? Right? This has to be a fucking prank because I'm just a nobody. He shouldn't be obsessed with me. After another attempt of calming me down, he also explained that after finding the photos, they got a warrant to search his house. They found more pictures scattered around and on his phone. They also found tons of rope, chains, duct tape, explicit toys, handcuffs, knives, and a gun. The assumption that was made is that he was planning on kidnapping me that day and bringing me home to do who knows what. But what he did not know was that I still lived with my parents. There were never any pics of my home, and he didn't know that showing up would lead to a satisfying ass-whooping. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 551. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then I would appreciate it if you share it about, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Obviously, if you're already subscribed, you can't subscribe again, no matter how much you might enjoy what I do. Unless you unsubscribe and then resubscribe, but that would be a bit pointless. Okay, let's see. This is Wednesday, I think. Yeah, I'm doing this on Wednesday, and that's the 12th. And the Eternals film that goes up on Disney Plus today. Gotta remember that. I've been wanting to see that. So that's probably what I will do today. Well, later today, I'll get comfy enough and watch that when it goes up. Sadly, as I record this, I'm starting to feel like my health is getting a little iffy. But I have ups and downs sometimes, so I'm hoping this is just a little blip. Because I was actually gradually starting to feel better. I'd actually gotten back to a proper recording schedule, so hopefully it's just a little blip. Start of the year and all that can sometimes happen. Anyway, with that, I'm gonna head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.